so it's great. This is our sort of first episode of our new music podcast, and I'll say music because I don't want to pigeonhole us and stuff. But I've got with us music songwriter and critic, as a critic, Omar Hudson, coming all the way from I wouldn't say the dirty South. I mean, where would you classify where a part of the state?
I'm actually in my hometown now. I'm actually back in Cleveland. So yeah, I'm actually in the Midwest.
Back in the Midwest.
Hello, everybody from Cleveland.
Okay.
Yes. So yes, it's great to be here.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to talk about R&B music.
Yeah. It's been, this past 18 months with COVID, it's really gotten us to sort of reminisce about music, from 80s, some people 70s, 90s, and early 2000s. And I think it'll be great as we start off. We're not sure how this podcast is going to go each week, but as we start off, it's always good to bounce back our top 5 albums and just, people might agree or disagree.
Right.
I'll let you go with number 5, and I can go with number 5. We just go in either way. I don't know if I haven't listed my top 5 in any particular order. I just have my 5.
Well, that's the thing. I haven't either.
Okay.
So I mean, because for me, it changes depending on how I'm feeling.
Okay.
It changes according to the time of year. I mean, in the summertime, you're kind of like feeling upbeat. You're kind of feeling like one out. So your playlist changes.
Yeah.
For me, and because I'm an 80s baby,
Okay.
I'm going to put at number 5. Crazy, Sexy, Cool, TLC.
Wow, TLC.
Yes.
Okay.
For me, just because, and this is the thing, I probably should have asked for more information because there's 2 types of lists. So there's the official list that the world, like the rankings, mainstream wise, like, that everyone can agree with. And then there's the more personal list that, this is just kind of my list of my favorite albums. So for me, I kind of, when you posed that challenge, I was thinking more along the lines of the albums that resonated with me at a young age and what got me wanting to be a songwriter, got me interested in music. And TLC's Crazy Sexy Cool was actually one of the first albums that I actually purchased as a youngster.
Wow.
And through one of those BMG music clubs that like 12 CDs for 5 cents or something. So back in the day, we used to have these mail off services that will send you CDs, and you just had to buy one or something, and they'll give you like 20. So I think Columbia House had one.
Columbia House,
I had my different aliases and different variations of my name.
I built a 500 CD collection using both of them. Yes. So
yes. So so the album really resonated with me just because it was just so cool. It just like the epitome of cool. It was one of the few albums that really matched the title. Like, it was fun, it was crazy, it was sexy, it was crazy. Like, obviously the whole incident with Left Eye burning down her boyfriend's house.
Yeah,
forget about that. So yeah, that resonated with me. That's number 5.
Okay. Yeah, no, and I would say that because I did buy their first album, the debut album. I did buy the second album, but I actually did prefer the first album, stringing to Crazy Sexy Cool. But that was just me. But when I look at my top 5, I'll go with one of them, and Make It Last Forever, and Keith Sweat's debut album. And I don't know if it's because by this time I'd been introduced to Teddy Riley. And so how I got introduced to Teddy Riley is that a good friend of mine, Shola, when I was living in Nigeria, I used to be big into Steven Spielberg and well, not Spielberg as particular or Teddy Riley or any stuff like that. I'll listen to or watch a movie, And he said, look, oh, if you like Jaws, have you watched Close Encounters of the Same Third Kind? I said, yeah, I like that. It's the same guy. So I said, why? And so that was the first time I was able to say, you know, how now they talk about who directed a movie. It's directed by Spielberg. Back then, it was how I got introduced to, oh, he did this. Well, I guess the other stuff he did must be good. And that's how Teddy Riley came to know, because I heard the first guy and Kumo D, and then he says, don't you know it's the same producer? So all of a sudden, I started looking out for Teddy Riley. When Make It Last Forever came out, just the fact that he did produce 7 out of the 8 tracks and co-produced Don't Stop Your Love. You know, he did the keyboards and stuff. I was just, so that became like one of my all-time favorite albums, just because of it was not too many songs. It was just fresh. It was just different. It was different from, say, what Luther and Teddy Pendergrass and James Ingram. It was different from what all the others were doing at that time, and the way Keith was singing. So I can still play it now, and it's still, you know, one of my top 5. I'll start with Make It Last Forever.
Yeah, that's a classic album. I think everybody in my family has a story about that album, because we always listen to that at the cookout and stuff like that. Let's see, because I really didn't have any order.
Yeah,
and there's so many good ones. So my number 4, I'm going to put I'm gonna go with Diary of a Mad Band, which is the second album from Jodeci. Yes.
Okay.
And the thing is, I love all of the Jodeci albums, but that one was the one that, to me, really established their sound and made them and established them from other. Because I think the first album had some influences from, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I'll Be Sure and Kyle West. There were other producers involved, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And in the second album, it was a lot more Devontae and Dalvin. And so, and it was just at that time, like I said, I was coming of age. I was young, actually. I think I was 11 or 12. But that album was really and I shouldn't have been listening to it at that age. But that album was really sonically, it was just so. It was so interesting, and it has some really beautiful ballads on it. I mean, it had a lot of up tempos, but it had beautiful ballads like My Heart Belongs to You. I mean, I love that song. I can just listen to that song over and over again and not get tired of it. So yeah, I really, that one is one that really resonated for me, and it's definitely an album I always go back to. And that's how I compiled this list. Albums that I go back to. Now, if we're going to be really critical and all that, I mean, there will be a different list. But these are songs albums that really resonate with me. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that one especially, Cry for You. Is it Cry for You?
Yeah. Cry for You.
That I remember. I remember when it came out. I just moved to Selma, Alabama. I was in college, and just the video and stuff. Because so that was definitely a great album. I would then go with number 4 for me. Would be the Bobby album.
Oh,
the Bobby album. It's
yes.
Again, Teddy did 7 or 8 tracks on the album, and
now this was his 3rd album, right?
So this was So people might think it was his second, but it was King State was his first. Prerogative was his. So Don't Be Cruel was his second, and the Bobby album was his 3rd. Unfortunately for us, the album came out maybe a year and a half too late, because it should have come out it should have come out in 91. It should have come out in 91, but he was. They said Teddy said in interviews that he was finishing up the Michael project. Then Bobby was getting married, and Teddy has later then said that he believes that Bobby getting married affected his fan base, and he wasn't as it just affected him, and he added weight. He was a different guy, so it came out a year later than it should have. But that said, I think Teddy was in a very different place a year by the time he did the album. It's probably he got nominated for a Grammy for that album. You know, even though because
Bobby or Teddy?
Teddy, as for producer of the year.
Okay.
He got nominated for a Grammy for producer of the year for that album.
Yeah, I love that song Getaway. I love that song.
Yeah, Getaway, Two Can Play That Game, Something in Common.
Yes.
It's it was just the production wise, and I've spoken to John Marie, who was the engineer on that. I've spoken to Levi Little, who sang background, Tammy Lucas. One More Chance is my favorite Bobby song ever. She was supposed to sing the chorus on that.
I think but you froze. Did I freeze or did you freeze?
Okay, no.
Okay. You froze for a second.
Okay.
All right. I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Okay.
So the album was successful though. Like I always felt like it should have been more successful, but it was very successful. I remember it was heavily played. But I do agree. I think it did come out later than it should. I didn't know there's the story behind it. So
yeah, big story. But so when we talk about, so it did 2 million, which R&B standards is good. But when you think Don't Be Cruel did about 10 million, you could see the drop off.
Yeah.
And Lowell Stiles Jr. And took responsibility. He did say that he thought the formula of releasing 2 LA and Babyface tracks, coming out with a hard Teddy Riley track, would work. What he did with the Don't Be Cruel album. So he thought, let's do the same thing. Unfortunately, Hump It Around was the first single, but it was a New Jack imitation, and it was a little bit corny. After a while.
Yeah, that was Babyface's, right?
It was LA and Babyface. And so Lowell thought, let's come out with 2 Babyface, LA and Babyface, and then we'll do the Teddy Riley stuff. And I think that's what really hurt it. If they came out with 2 Can Play That Game or a Getaway, it's more of a New Jack, because Teddy was in his prime at that point. And then you could do, come out with Good Enough. It would have just, so as disappointed as I was, it was that's still, I can still play that thing right now. So that's the Bobby album for me.
And that's the thing, like, people don't understand there's a lot of politics behind single choices at the labels, like if Bobby had success with Babyface, it's almost like guaranteed that they're going to have, a single or the first single or whatever the case may be. But But
I did remember at the time that Teddy wasn't happy that they went with. If you watch the Bobby documentary, it was joked around that he wanted Getaway to be the first, and they said no, it should be Humping Around. Yeah. But in reality, he actually said that because the label pushed Humping Around and Good Enough instead of his track, he said he wasn't going to work with Bobby again, and that was the last time they did anything up to recently. So, and I did think, they missed an opening. But anyway, I've spoken to everybody about the album. So, but anyway. Except for Bobby and Teddy soon. Go ahead.
So for me, where are we at? 3? I'm gonna put. So for me, I'm gonna go with Another Level.
Okay.
Now for me, so that album. The thing is, I really go back and forth with the first and second album, and I know a lot of people like the first album better. For me, I felt the second album felt more cohesive. If that makes sense, it just felt more like they found the sound that like they literally had hit after hit after hit on that album. That when you heard it, you were like, this could be a single. This could be a single. Now, the same thing with the first album, but in a different way. I think that the songs were singles, but I didn't see them as #1 singles. I felt like the second album had number one single potential, like at least 3 number one single potential records on that album. But No Diggity was just it felt so fresh and groundbreaking and different when it came out. And just the combination of Teddy with Dre and Queen Pen and all that, that was like that is like one of their signature records that they cannot get away from. And then the ballads were just so beautiful. And I was surprised because Teddy's not really known. I mean, he has ballads, don't get me wrong, but a lot of these songs felt Babyface level, like ballad, like Never Gonna Let You Go Away. I mean, what's that other song?
Don't Leave.
Don't Leave. I love that song. Like, there's so many like gems on that album. But again, I like the first album. Only because, like I said, I'm an 80s baby, so I came into certain things a little later. That is the album that I resonated with. I remember when the first album came out and there was like a switcheroo with the members, but I always felt like, being a fan of Guy, I just couldn't take to the Blackstreet right away.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like, okay, is this some kind of copycat Guy album?
Yeah.
So the second album, for me, they came into their sound. So I'm gonna put that at number 3 for me.
Okay. Well, my number 3, surprisingly enough, is the first Blackstreet album.
Oh, okay.
It's the
Battle of the
album.
Blackstreet albums.
Yeah. Another level, it's I bought it, I promoted it. When I talk about promoting, I was working at Best Buy in the music department, and I used to play it all the time. So when when people come in, like, oh, what's that song? Like, yeah, it's the new Blackstreet, and I was really pushing it because big Teddy fan as well. But I think production-wise, and I spoke to John Marie, the engineer, and I said, and even Mucci, I said, the sound quality on the first Blackstreet album and the Bobby album were very similar. But when it got to the Another Level, it became a little bit more, it felt as if he was programming the music, as opposed to the first couple of albums, which sounded a little bit more live instruments. And they said, yeah, he moved consoles and all that stuff. I didn't understand the technical side of it. But why I liked the first album, it was just that it felt there was no pressure on them. It just felt they had a little bit more variety of who sang, and it came very little promotion. And after Before I Let You Go came out, that was the song that took the album platinum. And just really, and then they released other singles, but I just really enjoyed that. And I think it's a memory too, because the album came out, and I still remember moving to I just moved to the States, that's the previous year, and I was able to go by myself and buy it for $16.95. Goodness, daylight robbery. But yeah, that was, I think that was just the first one. The first Joy was on that. They had Tonight's the Night. Goodness, Tammy Lucas. The fact that they didn't bring out the original version of that, I didn't like the SWV remix. They had some really big hits on that Happy Home. If you listen to it, I mean, they had the Neptunes joining them on that, so it felt like a family working together. So that would be my third album.
Yeah, again, I really love that album too, and what I liked about it is it had a nice balance of up-tempo and ballads. Because for me, I really like up-tempos. Like, that's kind of my thing. I love up-tempo records. So a lot of times I was surprised that the second album was so much more appealing to me, because I found that album was a little bit slower than the first album.
Okay.
Which was weird, because we expect, like, when you hear Teddy, you just expect Teddy's jam. Like, you just want to hear, the crazy beats and everything. And I think that the second album was a little bit more romantic in a way. But it was, again, I haven't listened to it in a few months, so I'll probably go back and listen. But I definitely I definitely appreciate that. Let me see. Where are we at, 2?
Yeah, but you know,
Wow, this is really quick. So for me, I'm gonna put the Future guy at
okay.
number. We're at 2, right?
Yeah, number 2.
Okay, yeah, that's number 2 for me. Um, and this was an album my mother actually introduced to me because, like I said, I was an '80s baby, so she loved Guy, and so she played everything Guy from the first album, obviously, and as I got older, I listened like I had her tape. I was sneaking and taking her tape and playing the cassette tape, and I was just playing it and playing it and playing it till I basically messed it up. And so she got mad at me. So she went and got a record album of it, and no, a CD. I'm sorry, she got a
I
CD
see.
of it, and yeah, but that was the first album, and I don't know, I was just so excited. I remember being so excited for the second album, and it's just something about that second album and the sequencing and the songs and how it opens. Her, like that song is just so, and I was actually surprised in the interview you did with Damien. I was surprised that he actually produced that or had a hand in that, if I'm not mistaken. And he said that was like the first, what do you say? He said urban techno record or something. I kind of agree,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it was a
yeah.
very interesting sound to that record. Um, it seemed very harder edged and kind of angry too. Some of the
Yeah,
songs like Total Control. So, but that album resonated with me because I was also going through changes in my life. I was getting older, and the music, um, it just always felt comforting, and it felt good because like songs like Let's Chill, um, Let's Stay Together. I love those songs. I can throw those songs on and just be instantly transported back to
yeah,
the early 90s. I also love the first album. But again, for me, it was the second album that caught me.
yeah,
So, and that's the one I remember. And a lot of times with, just like, my younger brothers and stuff like that, they'll like and the next album or whatever, because that's, the album they were introduced with a
yeah,
particular artist. And you go back and you like start discovering the music before that album, but it's something about the very first album that uh is of your moment,
yeah.
so that's my second one. It could have easily been, well, this is a 5. If this was not 5 and 10, I could throw more in there because there's so many good.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, it's strange because I didn't put, because it's not in any particular order, but I
right.
had Guy in my top 5, but I was torn between which one to go with. And, it's strange that I've interviewed the third member. I've interviewed Timmy and Damien, and they both have very different perspectives of both albums. Um, but the Future album was one of my first 4 albums I bought. It was Future, it was Peaceful Journey, it was the En Vogue, and it was TLC. Actually, no, 5, and it was also the Carnival Revival by Tony. And that was, as I said, this was me seeing Teddy. This is one of the first albums. So I actually went with the Future album over the Guy album, because the Future album, I got the liner notes. I was reading through because saw the credits, who wrote what, who co-produced what. Like, wow, Teddy, you did all this stuff. Aaron sang a lot more in that. Teddy's Jam. I think Teddy's Jam 2 was my favorite one.
Yeah,
They
I like that one
released
better too.
7 singles. In the 80s, their first album had 8 singles. Their second album had
Oh,
15 plus a bonus, and they released 7 singles. Now, the album only
wow.
went double platinum. The first album went double platinum. The Guy album went platinum. Just recently has gone double platinum.
Mm,
But they gave them 7 singles. So this was her. It was Do Me Right. Is I Want to no, not actually no. The videos. I Want to Get With You. Do Me Right. Let's Chill. Dog Me Out. Let's Stay Together. I know that I'm missing. I wish I had the album in front of me. That was just 5, but I know. Dog Me Out, and I can't remember the other ones right. Teddy's Jam 2. Yeah,
I thought Let's Stay. Didn't Let's Stay Together come out?
Yeah,
okay, did you say that one?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So there was 6. Okay. I think 6 singles that came out. Although Her was released as a single, but they didn't do a video. They did 6 videos. Okay. They did 7 singles, but 6 videos. 6 videos. And one of I love Let's Stay Together, the remix, you know, the extra drums and stuff. The remix of Dog Me Out, you know, it's it was like this, you know, when people say, what is New Jack Swing? I'd say, well, listen to Future. This is Teddy saying, okay, I did stuff with Johnny Kemp, I did stuff with Keith, and I've done stuff with Heavy, but this is New Jack Swing, and he really pushed it. But you said, it was interesting, you said it sounded like an angry album. This is after they split with Gene, and they realized he took all their publishing. You know, he realized that anything they did, they didn't own anything. You know,
that explains it.
That's where the anger was. So gotta be a leader, you know, Mr. Clean.
Yeah, gotta be a leader. That's what that was about. Okay. Yeah,
gotta be a leader was Mr. Clean. You know, the Kill says Mr. Clean, Mr. You know, and if you ever
it's making sense now.
Yeah, that was him. Wow. That was Gene. And of course, at that point, I just said, oh, they split their manager. Aaron wanted to quit music because he realized he was penniless. You know, he realized that Timmy, who got...
That is crazy.
Timmy still owns the publishing, and he still made the money because he refused to sign. So I do tell everyone, if you want to know, you know, even though I've interviewed Timmy Gatlin for over 2 hours, the series called Jacked, is really, it's because Timmy gave us the whole stuff on my interview on Halftime Chat, but in Jack, Damien speaks and Teddy speaks and Damien, and he goes a little bit more in detail about how Gene says, oh yeah, everyone sign here, we're going to dinner because the album's coming out, and everyone just signs and goes out, and Timmy's like, whoa, I'm not going to sign this, I need to read it, what's this? And Aaron and Teddy try to push him. So come on, just sign it so we can all just move on. And he was like, no, I don't know this guy. Let's just, and stuff. And even how he brought Gene back in when Teddy says, no, don't bring him back in. I don't trust him. From the kids at work day.
Timmy or Teddy?
Timmy said, we need a manager and I'm going to go get Gene. Teddy says, no, I didn't like you. When we did the kids at work, he took advantage of us. Let's not bring him. But Timmy encouraged him, says, look, he's changed. He'll do better. So Timmy brought Gene back into the fold, even against Teddy's advice. Gene saw that Timmy was the smart one, and Teddy was easily
manipulative.
But he could work with him a lot easier. So he formed GR Production. Timmy says he thought it was Gatlin Riley, not realizing it was Griffin Riley. So, and that's how they started. He came in between the two because he sort of, well, you know, Teddy's the musical genius, you know, production-wise, even though Timmy can write and arrange, but Timmy's the leader of the group. But, you know, what could have happened? But anyway, I don't want to go off course.
Yeah, that interview was really interesting, though. That's like one of the first interviews I found your channel, because it was interesting to find out that Timmy and Aaron produced or the rough draft of Piece of My Love. And I'm like, I thought that was Teddy, but that, and you know, it makes sense now. But yeah, so it's an interesting interview. Go back and watch it on Halftime Chat. But yeah, that's an interesting story.
Yeah, but yeah, as I said, yeah, that was it. So what's in what rounds up your?
Oh my God, you know, I don't even like to. I don't want to say number one, but it's number one. So I'm gonna go with, because the thing is, it's like almost like a three. I have like all these honorable mentions that literally could be a three rates tie with this album.
Okay.
But I'm gonna do it just because, like I said, for my nostalgia and what I remember. I'm gonna go with Mary J. Blige's "My Life."
Okay.
That was another album that I felt fused so many different things. For me, it fused old soul and jazz and hip hop, and it was a very moody album, and I was a very moody teenager, so
Mm.
it just kind of worked because I was, one day I'm upbeat, one day I'm closing my door, I don't want to talk to anybody, and I just throw on my my life album, and just kind of like stew in my own, like, angst or whatever, my, whatever. And I had nothing, and when I think about it, I had nothing to be depressed about or angry about, but it just felt like it was like cool being rebellious and just angry. So, that album, not that the album was really angry, it's a lot of love and stuff on the album too,
Yeah.
but I just, I don't know. I just realized a lot of the albums I put on here are like the second album for all these
Yeah.
artists. But I don't know. I think that for me, the first album, in some cases, the first album is the best album for a lot of artists. But sometimes the second album, I feel like the artists are allowed to be themselves sometimes. Like they're
Yeah.
allowed to do more, and you get a chance to see it, or get a little bit more of a peek into,
Yeah.
like, I think with My Life, she wrote more, so I got a chance to kind of hear who she was.
Yeah.
And the same thing with some of the other artists I mentioned. Oh, okay. But anyway, so songs like My Life, obviously the title cut.
Mm.
Um, um, what's the song? All Night Long. I don't know. Just all of the songs on the album are really, they mean something to me. I'm Going Down, the remake.
Yeah.
At that time she was really killing remakes. She did Sweet Thing on the first album. And the
Mm.
second album she did I'm Going Down, and is they were. I mean, like I said, the Shakas, Sweet Thing can't be touched, but Mary definitely put her own like style on it, and it sounded really, like, at that time. I remember when I was younger, I used to tell my mother, I love this one, this one's better than Shaka's. And I but the thing is, I never heard Shaka's, so when I heard Shaka's, I'm like, oh, okay, put my foot in my mouth on that one. But but no, she yeah, so it just is that era, like that uptown, like it was, I guess that was post New Jack, or was it still in that New Jack? I think New Jack was kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
coming,
by that time it was coming through, because that
like
90,
93, 94.
yeah, 93, 94, because by the time Jodeci came out,
Yeah, it was kind of
it changed the flow of how the music was a little bit slower, calmer, and then
right.
yeah, so I would think Jodeci's that Diary of a Mad Band sort of changed the way the music was, and how Uptown was the direction they were going, and even Teddy with the Blackstreets also kind of, he it wasn't in the same, it was a little bit more influenced by West Coast, you know
Yeah,
the West
yeah,
Coast kind of, the sampling of the 70s stuff became a lot more prominent from after the Dre and Snoop stuff. So a lot of the influences from that. So yeah,
yeah. I think
Stranger,
that's the
yeah.
interesting thing. No, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I was just, when you brought up the sampling, I just thought that was so interesting because in the '90s, when I was like a teenager, the sampling made us want to know who are these artists, and we would
Yeah,
go
yeah,
back, and because I always was reading the credits and wanting to know who did what and what was
yeah,
sampled, and I would go look this, find the song, or ask my mother, did she have a record of this, or da 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 da,
yeah.
because she had a record collection, and I would go do that. But nowadays they sample things, and nobody nobody really cares to know who did it before, and so it's just a weird thing, and so
Yeah, I mean, back then
that's
there was a lot of George Clinton. So as I said, Dre
yeah.
and Snoop, the dynamics, so there's a lot of sampling of the obscure bands. So they weren't sampling, say, Temptations or stuff like that.
Right.
And as I said, even Parliament and Funk, most people didn't know too much about them unless you're in a niche. So when Drains did that, so Teddy did quite a bit of that sampling for the debut Black album, Black Street album, Booty Call and a few other things. But yeah, so that's but going back to your second, the album with running up your top 5, the Mary. That's probably one of the Mary albums that I like the least because it was very depressing. I remember listening to this and just feeling like, oh man, Mary. It makes sense after. If you guys have not watched the My Life documentary, I'm a psychotherapist. So as a therapist, that was like amazing to hear people talk about their mental health and how they put it to song. Now I realize why that album really brings me down because it was real and for me, I'm listening to that and I'm a very upbeat person. So that album, as I own the album, I bought it when it came out, but I prefer the Faith album because it was a little bit more upbeat. It was a little bit more
right.
Yeah, so
exactly.
it was the
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was just my nature.
Well, again, like I said, when I think back to the 90s, so that and I really could have threw some 80s in there too. I mean, when I was young, I was really listening to a lot of stuff, and that was really beyond my years. I was just picking up, Earth, Wind and Fire, The Main Ingredient. I was just grabbing Curtis Mayfield. Like I was just, because my mother had a record collection, so I heard so many different things. I could really throw a lot of things in here. Yeah. But those records, just because she was kind of in that, she just was cool. Like Uptown Records just at that moment. And that's what I think I would say 93, 94 is when I became aware. And I think that what I mean by aware is like aware of who is who. Like when I was like, I would say 90, 91, 92, 93, I was listening to music, but it was kind of, I don't know who these people are. I just like the songs. Yeah. And I think when 94 hit, I was kind of more so like reading the credits and I was watching the videos and I was looking at the names and keeping up with so that's why it kind of resonated a little bit more for me. And then I went back and said, okay, so who is New Edition? And I started watching all the videos and, listening to the albums and things. And, Johnny Gill joined New Edition. Yeah. Like, it was just like so much to learn. But it was a fun time. But just get back to the album. Like I said, in that period, I think that in between time when you're a tween, you're becoming a teenager, and then you're going into adulthood. It's like it's a funny time, and so certain things resonate with you. And sometimes, and I was a moody teenager, so that album particularly. But don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna lie and say I'm an upbeat person. I have my days, but I love uptempo and. I listen to all kinds of music, but those particular ones in the R&B really resonated. And I'm really, when I think of, this is the last thing I'm gonna say, because I don't want to be long-winded, but when I think about albums that I don't have to skip around. I can just put it on and push play. And for me, another level, I can just push play and not skip to this song or that song. I can just push play, let it play. My Life, I can just let it play. There's several albums like that. Brown Sugar from D'Angelo, 12 Play from R. Kelly. These are ones that are my honorable mentions. Like there are albums that they just resonate with me a certain way. And the same thing, like Make It Last Forever. Those are albums, and I was never a big Keith Sweat fan because his music was so mature and I was young at that time. Yeah. So at that time I didn't resonate with what he was singing then, but later in life as I got older and started having relationships, those songs meant something to me then because his songs were a little bit more mature for me. So but I want to get to your number one. I'm sorry, let's get there.
It is hard because there were three albums I think of to round up, and one would be the Brian McKnight's debut album. The second one would be the 112 debut album, and the third would be Mary's Share My World album. And when I think, like, if I say, okay, I need to just have one of them in my top three, that becomes the challenge. Is like, my top 5, which of them, because I know that I don't skip 112. I know that the Brian McKnight debut album, I don't skip that. But and then with the Mary album, they were from the tracks you had with Jonathan Butler, the one with Little Kim. It's it was a different album from My Life, which I didn't like at all, and and so I would go with Share My World, which is because I would because it was a little bit more upbeat, it was a little bit more mature. It was a different Mary, because if you think about her from What's the 411 and how she had matured, just how her image and style was, and in My Life, it almost with the Puffy trying to dress her up with the stuff, but she became her own person in Share My World. It was almost like I've triple. I've already had 2-day platinum albums. I'm an artist. And she didn't stay with Puffy. She reached out.
That album she didn't
Tone and
work
Poke, Ronnie Jenkins. I think she got other people, and they found a richness in her that she got. So that's why I was going to Share My World, even though, as I said, on my honorary mentions would be 112 and Brian McKnight, because I don't skip those 2 albums. But so.
I'm frustrated because there's so many albums I want to throw in there, and that was a good one. I like that album. I really, really like. That's one of my favorite Mary J. Blige albums. I put that actually before her first album. I like that album. The first album was really good too. Those are the 3. The first 3 are my favorite of hers. And who else were we talking about? Well, Guy only has 2. Well, they have 3 albums. But I only like the first 2. I mean, most of the albums I usually like just the first 2 or 3, and then it kind of goes off and stuff, But Brian McKnight, I'm glad you mentioned that. And the album wasn't as popular as his later stuff, but this very first debut album is literally one of the first albums I bought, and I was like 12 years old, and I loved that album. I used to listen to it, and people would be like, they're listening to Snoop Dogg or Outkast, and I'm like, what you listening to? And I'm like, Brian McKnight, and they're like, what? Like, who?
It was
such a beautiful album.
Definitely, because
Never Felt This Way Before, One Last Cry. Those songs are just
the piano. When I spoke to Darnell and Donald Jones, and one of the things he kept saying was that there was diversity, male artists, and they sang about love differently.
Yes.
And it's hard to find. I mean, now you don't, but then we got the neo soul. So when people like D'Angelo came about, Raheem Devon, and so the other R&B singers there now, but they did not have the distinctive sounds and style as Kenny Lattimore did and Brian McKnight.
Yeah.
It was just, R. Kelly, as much as everyone might have views about him, but he was, he had his music, he had his way of singing, he had what his stuff. And Keith trying to keep up, but Keith Sweat also trying to stay in there. But that was the richness that we had in that time. So we will get to to our favorite groups next week, and our favorite male artists and our producers, and so there's endless to talk about. But just so that we have people realize is that the fun thing about what we're doing is, in a sense, talking about music and celebrating it. We're not saying that there's no good music out now. In fact, one of the things that I hope that we'll be able to do in our next episode would be to discover some new albums that have been released within the last 6 months, and bring our top 5 of 2021, which to most of us might seem hard, but it's not impossible. And the reason why I say it might seem hard is because, you spoke about watching music videos back in the 90s. BET was at its prime. Donnie Simpson show season on Video Soul. So they were just playing all these new videos and stuff. And we had a lot more Black-owned radio stations. So there was a lot of, we were seeing and we were hearing, and we got to know and discover. It seems now that some of these stations and networks are pushing predominantly hip hop and a version of hip hop, trap music.
Right.
So we're not then getting exposed to the variety of R&B that we were used to early on. So it might seem as if we're stuck in a time capsule because we missed the 90s, but it was because we were getting to see and hear and discover and enjoy.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, we're not getting the same exposure. Hence, what we're getting exposed to, we don't enjoy. Hence, we refer back. But part of what we will do, as part of our civic duty to this music genre, is to showcase, 5 albums or artists or songs released in the last 6 months that people should look out for and stuff.
Check out, yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually did. I had a couple, but I can't even pronounce these people's names. I've never pronounced them out loud.
Okay.
And I don't want to make a fool of myself. I know one artist, her name is Leanne La. I know she's actually a UK. She's from the UK, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But I can't pronounce her last name. So next time I'll attempt to pronounce it.
Okay.
And I was actually going to ask you, since you brought that up, yeah, I do agree that we're not getting exposure. Yet I have posed this in forums before that it's hard to find music, and I would always get the response that maybe I'm just too lazy. Maybe I should be actively searching. And how do you feel about that? Do you feel like we've gotten lazy, or do you feel like because I feel like you shouldn't have to put so much effort towards finding certain things. That's why I say I've said before that I feel like there's a lack of diversity and a lack of there's diversity, but I feel like it's controlled almost. But what do you feel? What do you feel like? Do you feel like we as consumers we have more options, so we should be trying to actively and aggressively be looking? Or because back in the day, like we said before, the disc jockeys introduced, they were the curators that kind of selected through all of the stuff to find this is worth putting out here for everyone to hear. And I miss that, because you usually got the best music, and that was a proven strategy that worked. And now it's kind of left up to us to kind of what are your
so I moved to America in 92, and the first thing I noticed, which was a shock to me, was that you could drive to a bank and sit in the car, put your check through, and it would zip across and deposit. You didn't have to get out of your car. That was a shock to me, because again, I was in the UK, where you'd walk into a bank. You don't have a drive-through bank. You don't have a drive-through. Now they have drive-through McDonald's and stuff. But back in those days, in the UK, it was pretty much you have to walk around. There was no drive-through pharmacy. So what I was trying to get to is that when you have a society like the US, where the convenience is you don't need to move, we'll bring it to you. Very similar to if you watch the Pixar animation called WALL-E, where they're all sitting in their chair and they don't get out and they just drink and stuff. That's how it just seems like it. So as a consumer, I'd watch Video Soul, and Donnie Simpson will introduce a new group and stuff. I would listen, depending on what state I was in, I was listening to the radio. And so I didn't have to go and look and search for new music because it was showcased in, either you had the midnight, what's it called? The
Midnight Soul.
Midnight Soul on BT, so they'll play the slow jams and artists you didn't see. That's how I even discovered Blackstreet, because they didn't. I saw the video first before I heard the song on the album on the radio. So what I'm trying to get to is that throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s, because people might say, "Oh, the 70s is best." Notice, not saying anything about that, but I'm saying in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, songs were broken on the radio. People listening on the radio, and then by the 90s, because MTV did not let Black artists show up on MTV, so by the time BET onto Michael Jackson, but BET was the place to watch it. So we were given the music, so we didn't have to look. So can you think now we're not being conditioned to start searching? There are a few people that do that and look for indie bands and stuff, but the majority of us are used to being given music. And so when we put on the radio, and everything's digital, so I'm not listening to a radio unless I'm driving somewhere and the DJ's bringing stuff up. And even shows like Video Soul, 106 and Park have changed. They're dropping more hip hop stuff. So you can see that it is a challenge to go and look and discover, where do we go? What do we look at? Go on Spotify. There's so many things out there. Who's recommending it? Who's telling me what to do? So that becomes a challenge. But I know as we're running out of time, we'll get more into that, because when we do feature our 5 artists to look out for today, we will then start talking a little bit more about that and give our listeners and viewers tips as to how to find new music and how to get good recommendations and stuff.
And I would say, when we do make these suggestions, you guys check out the music, support, buy it. Yeah. Because so many people say, "Oh, there's no good music." Well, there is good music, but you have to support it. And a lot of these artists that we love, they are putting out new projects. We have to support them. We have to buy their music. And I look in Billboard and I look at the sales, and where are the fans that claim that they want their R&B? So when we make these suggestions and you like what you hear, buy it. Don't just stream it.
Buy it. Just stream, definitely. Well, by the time we join next week, we will have a name for the show, and by the time this comes out, we would have placed the name on it. But so it's from myself, Nnamdi, and from Omar. We want to thank you guys for listening and watching, and till next time.
Till next time. See you then.
See you.